Nostalgia Street invites you on a retro ride that's more than just a trip down memory lane.
Uncover life lessons and personal growth stories that stem from our collective past.
So you can live a richer, more connected life today.
Whether you're a 90s kid, an 80s teen, or simply young at heart, you'll find something to relate to in each episode.
Now, here are your hosts, Vince and Jeff.
Welcome back to another episode of Nostalgia Street. Happy New Year. When this podcast comes out, it'll be 2024, or it is 2024.
I'm still signing things 2023. It's going to take 2 months to fix that.
Yeah, I know. That's probably true. Well, we have a special guest today. His name is Greg. We will tell you all about Greg in just a second. But first, we have to do our sponsor shout out. We are here at our studio on Main. Yes, Forefront Studios. Look at my coffee cup. It's... I won't tell you who made these coffee cups for us. I love them dearly, but these were not designed to run in the dishwasher at all. Oops, running. That was a little bit of a little clue about who our guest is today. But anyway, back to Forefront Studios is our parent sponsor. It's also our business. We're here on 114 South Main Avenue. Please no groupie pictures anymore. Don't you hate when they're waiting outside the studio to talk with us?
It's like we're like The View or something.
The View.
Look at The View. Nothing.
Whoa. I'm not an older lady. I'm old, but I'm not an old lady. Anyway, well, let's get away from all of this and let's get to our guest today. You got a good question?
Greg, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
So in the next Olympics, you've been designated the coach of the U.S. running team. However, there's a catch. You have to pick either the 4x1 or the 4x4. But the only people you can pick are fictionalized characters.
Okay.
Which race are you coaching, and who are you picking?
4x4.
Okay.
I think, any added distance is going to be great. Fictional characters. That's
Like a Speedy Gonzalez or...
Well, Flash, is that cheating?
No.
Breaking the space-time barrier.
I could choose like 4 versions of the Flash.
Oh, wow. He's fast. He's fast. That's pretty good.
So I think I'll just do that. I think there's multiple versions of the Flash, and
How about 4 different characters from different properties?
Well, okay. So right now, just because it's like the bee's knees in my house, I'm going to choose Donnie from the Ninja Turtles. So Donatello.
Okay.
Only because my daughter would think it's awesome. No speed relation at all.
He picks a turtle for a race.
Yeah.
Gives you an insight into my running ability right there and where I'm coming from. But yeah, so I'll take Donatello. On the spot. Maybe James Bond. I feel like he's always running.
Okay. Whip out a gun and shoot the competition always running by, maybe.
I want to see this either that or I'll just offer him some martinis. He's got several ways on which he could win a race for you.
There's a trail of martinis that'll lead him back.
So you get in the water, he gets some martinis.
Yeah,
he's just got
absolutely.
one lap.
Oh man, trying to think of characters. This is pretty tough for me.
Yeah, 2 more.
Maybe Wonder Woman.
Okay.
I think you gotta have Wonder Woman in there, especially Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. I think is definitely the way to go.
Yeah,
to spice that team up, and then
so I'm thinking Daniel Craig and Gal Gadot running.
At least it's a beautiful team, and then you have a turtle.
True.
Who's your anchor?
My anchor's got to be Jaws.
Jaws.
Yeah, why not?
The shark. Right. Why not?
I want to see how these guys fit in uniforms. A
They'll
Team
look
USA
good.
uniform
They
on
will
Jaws.
look good. Yeah.
I'm seeing a Salvador Dali painting all of a sudden in my head. Jaws running in the Olympics.
The American team with James Bond. I'm, just bringing this together. They're trying to cast it, and they're throwing out lots of characters.
This might be the best unhinged question we've
gonna,
ever had.
We're gonna own it and just take James Bond for ourselves.
And Jaws too. He's American.
See you in
American
Paris.
shark.
I think it's like 140 some odd days away from Paris.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Wow. All right. Well, if you haven't guessed already, that's a good answer. We have Greg Koch, who is the owner of 605 Running here in Sioux Falls. Correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
Owner.
Not too far away from us, just a few blocks away. So we're going to learn a lot more about Greg on this episode. It'll be fun because we only really met just like 15 minutes ago, right?
Totally.
Yeah. All right. I like it.
Well, you say you're a child of the 90s, so let's start back there. Let's dial the time machine back to the 90s.
Bring it back.
And give us like a rent-free memory of you growing up. Like what did you get in trouble for?
Oh, what did I get in trouble? I got in trouble for a lot of things. I was a bad kid. Well, it's funny. I did a lot of bad things. I don't know if I got in trouble for them. If you ask my sisters, I was rent free. I mean, I'm the baby of the family, and so I was the bad one, but I didn't necessarily always get in trouble for things. But the usual stuff, sneaking out, staying up late, watching movies I'm not supposed to watch. I was
Dennis
a
the
pretty
Menace.
good rapscallion, yeah.
Yeah. What was a movie that you saw that you weren't supposed to see?
I was thinking about this today. I remember, 94, I think 94, I'm watching Speed like on repeat,
right.
Keanu Reeves and like, what's this kid doing watching an R-rated movie? But yeah.
Well, how old were you?
94, I don't know, like 8 maybe.
Okay, so you're an 8-year-old watching Speed on repeat.
Yeah.
That's like a
There's worse
Dennis
movies.
Hopper, like great character,
Yeah. There's worse movies though than Speed.
there's way worse. I'm sure that I was watching worse, but that one came to mind.
Did you ever go to bed and sneak down the hallway while mom and dad are watching a movie that they waited until you went to bed to watch?
No, my parents, they're great sleepers. So
all right.
it's the older sisters that would get me in trouble. Like I watched Scream at a young age, and
Oh yeah, that would be terrifying.
That not an appropriate movie. Nightmare on Elm Street, horror movies. Like I don't really love horror movies, but I ended up watching a whole bunch of them, just mostly because I had older sisters who. I think older siblings make you cooler, especially when they're 6 and 9 years older than you. They're like perfectly spaced to just make me a cooler person because I got into lots of trouble watching stuff I shouldn't be, listening to music I shouldn't be listening to, but I was doing it all.
We get to learn from their mistakes
Yeah, something like that.
or remind them of their mistakes.
I think
they
that's
made.
why I'm a better parent. They had kids first, and so I watched all the stuff they did. And I'm not going to do that.
So what were so you had all sisters?
I got 2 sisters. Yeah, two older sisters.
All right.
Love them dearly.
Sure. Wink, wink. Where do they live?
They're here in town.
okay.
Yeah. One is in Brandon, so it's basically like Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
Sioux Falls with an attitude, I think.
Do you have any particular escapades that you could share? Like, for example, Joe Batchelor shared with us how him and his brother tried jumping out of a window because they thought they were Supermen.
Sure. Yeah, my sister, she taught me how to climb onto the roof of the house at a very young age. And so we lived out in rural Iowa growing up. And so she taught me how to chimney between our shed and our house and get on the roof. And so my mom came home to me doing like somersaults on the roof.
What's chimney?
So like using the shed and the house, and then like it's a climbing term. So I'm going to stem my legs and chimney my way up onto the roof. And so my sister taught me all sorts of tricks on getting up. And then the only way to get off was to jump off.
Sure.
Which was fine with me. And
Until you landed.
yeah, it's funny. So last night, my nephew, who was in 6th grade, my sister's little boy, he got hit with a hockey puck and had to go and get stitches last night. And I'm just like, I prepared you so well to have boys because she has 2 boys. I'm like, you're welcome. Like, I'm the gift that keeps giving.
Merry Christmas next year.
Yeah.
That scar's gonna leave a mark, little guy. Unfortunately. Well, what's his name? Your nephew.
Brody.
How old is he?
He's in 6th grade.
Okay.
He's 8 years old. So he's older than 8, 10 years old. Great uncle right here.
Yeah.
Definitely the funcle.
The funcle.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a funcle.
Yeah, he's 6th grade. Took a hockey puck to the face last night. Getting himself into trouble.
Did he bleed a lot?
No, it doesn't sound like it was too much of a bleeder. Just a nice gash right above the eye.
Just enough to need a stitch.
Yeah,
or
2 internal stitches, 9 external.
Internal?
So, yeah,
Wow.
he's rocking it.
So what were your pivotal injuries as a young age then? Because you said you prepared your sister for this.
Oh,
So-
absolutely. So I took our house, we had an awesome hill in the back, and then we had a terrace that went down into a sandbox, and then a picnic table. Our backyard was pretty killer. But I took a sled off the terrace right into the picnic table. So I had a gash under my eye, and my parents weren't home. My sister was responsible. And so I came to the door, and I had a hood up. I took that hood up, and blood was just going everywhere. So I perfectly prepared her for an experience like that.
So you said so this kind of maybe lends over to this. You said when you were in school that the teachers didn't think you could read.
Right.
And it's because you did not participate. I'm curious to hear.
A little stubborn.
Wow, I guess.
Yeah.
What's that look like? How old was this?
First grade. My teacher was convinced that I had some sort of learning disability because I was just not interested in reading any of the material that was presented to me at all. Like I would just check out. I would go to sleep, whatever. Like just not not interested in reading. And my parents obviously knew this was a line of BS. They're like, no, he can read just fine, and we can prove it to you. And so they brought the sports page. I was a huge sports nut. I loved all things sports, still do. And I was a huge Michael Jordan fan. So this is early 90s Bulls, the first run, the first three-peat, and I read the entire sports page about the Bulls and how they beat the Bullets that night, and Jordan cleaned house. So he had like 40 points and, 10 boards, whatever the stat lines were. I was reading the whole thing and just blew my teacher's mind. But not only can he read, he can read at a higher level than what he's supposed to be able to. You just have to get the right material in front of him.
So were you on a first name basis with the principal by refusing to participate? How long did that go on?
It's funny because we were talking about this at Christmas about how my parents knew every single one of my principals. They couldn't say the same thing for my sisters yet. At home, my sisters were the ones that would get grounded and get in trouble, especially my middle sister, Becky. She'd get grounded all the time. She just knew exactly how to push my dad's buttons, whereas I just kind of stay back and be low key and slowly just getting away with everything.
Curse of the middle child.
Yeah. I hear all about it.
So how long did this stubborn streak last?
I don't know if it's necessarily ended. It's just more contained, more controlled.
It's
He's
refined.
answering their questions.
It's refined now.
Yeah.
Refined.
Yeah.
Selective non-participation. So the teachers found out, whoa, this guy is way smarter than we thought.
I didn't say way smarter. He can just read.
He can read better. Okay.
You said at a higher level.
He can read sports at a pretty high level.
But anything else, not reading so much?
Not going to.
Just not going
So
to.
did they have to like sportsify all of your like reading and writing? Like, write, but write about sports.
Oh, every write anything, and it was okay. I'm gonna make a newspaper, and it's gonna be all like Sunday's football report. And I'm gonna draw every team. Everything had to be about like sports or trucks or tractors or whatever. Like it just was a nonstop run of this is clearly the boy in this family, and he's all about just being a boy and getting into trouble.
Yeah. So did this theme continue like through grade school and junior high, or did you say, okay, I gotta change my ways a little bit?
There's just always been a bit of a streak of a rebel in me. So we moved to Sioux Falls when I was in 7th grade, and it was kind of interesting. When we moved, my sisters, one was going to college at Iowa Central Community College in Fort Dodge, Iowa, and the other, she was going to be a senior when we moved. And so my parents thought it was a good idea to get them a townhouse so they could stay there so that my sister Becky could have her senior year at the school that she had gone to.
Right.
And we moved. So imagine like one sister's 21, the other one's 18, and they have their own townhouse rent free. Like they're just living rent free.
Oh boy.
Unbelievable. But I moved up here, and so I went from being the baby to being like an only child, which just sort of made some things worse. I think I became more independent and more of like, I know everything that there is to know about anything. You can't tell me otherwise. So just sort of turn the volume like to 11 on some of those behaviors, and when you have to go make new friends and figure that out.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, we growing up, we stayed put. We went to same high school, junior high school, elementary.
Moving in middle school, 10 out of 10. Would totally recommend.
Really?
No.
Yeah.
No, absolutely terrible.
You don't want to move in middle school.
Yeah.
Middle school's hard enough, and then being the new kid in 7th grade.
So what kinds of peer pressure memories may or may not arise from that middle school? Because that's where most kids, I think, go through that peer pressure phase.
Yeah.
Clothes you had to wear, things
Trends.
you had to say.
middle school for me, like wrestling was really, really big at the time, like The Rock and Stone Cold and some of those things. And so
The glory days.
yeah, everyone had their sort of faction and they were crotch chopping and like, I
forget about that.
Yeah. You know, there was just a lot of that going on, whether you really understood what you were doing or.
But Mom, they're doing it on TV. It's okay.
It was gang warfare. And
what were some of the go-to phrases?
They're not even for podcasts. It's you can YouTube it. You can look it up. Yeah. But The Rock he's a walking catchphrase. He still is. But know your role and shut your mouth, stuff like that. And teachers appreciate it when you say things like that to them all the time.
I don't care what your name is.
Yeah.
So when you do think back on to that heyday, what is like one of those favorite memories that you still think about or hope that your kids are able to, or your nephews, if they're any kid out there, you're like, God, that was a great time. I wish everybody could go through that.
Well, I think it's cool. You can always be a kid. Yep. And I think that's a lesson that I learned. So when we first moved here, we moved in the summertime. So I wasn't necessarily in a lot of activities yet and was new to town. And I had my mom and dad. And one of the cool things we did, so that first school year, that was the year we randomly, like in early October, got like 12 inches of snow, just a huge snow day. And I'm like, wow, this is South Dakota. It snows way more than Iowa. This will be great. But they took me sledding to Tut Hill. They had no idea like what Tut Hill was. And they're like, we'll go sledding because we had a hill in our backyard, and sledding was like a big thing that we did growing up. So I was like, oh, this will be fun. And
the black diamond of sledding.
Yeah, we went straight to Tut Hill and went. My poor mom gets on the sled. She's like, she hates the cold to begin with, but she's like, we're gonna do this so you have fun today. And we just went rocketing down Tut Hill, and there's that dip right in the middle. We caught some air, and it was pretty wild. And I just, that day stands out to me because it was pretty special. Like my mom and dad were still able, it was high stress. They got 2 kids that are living 3 hours away that are of a certain age where they could be getting into a lot of trouble. That I'm sure there was a lot of stress on them. And then I'm the only kid. I'm struggling to make friends and stuff. And so they just took me out. We had a good time, and it just stands out as a great memory with my mom and dad to rock Tut Hill. We went down like 2 or 3 times, and that was enough for them.
Yeah, that's a long hill.
It's a wild hill,
steep.
And we still go there. Like I'll take my daughter there, but I've learned I don't go to the top. We start at the bottom. We go about halfway up, and it's a lot more tame that way.
I took my kids there too, Ben. Yeah, I think we went down twice. Oh my God, and it snowed a lot, so
it's a workout.
It is a workout.
We'll be right back.
Did you ever go to Spellerberg before they carved it out?
Oh yeah,
and you would just rock it into the street.
Yeah, yep.
Before they carved that ball, you just go straight into the street.
Yeah, we've got some good sledding hills around here. Spellerberg's good, and then Terrace Park is a little underrated too with the terraces. Like you can do some wild stuff over there on a sled too.
I have to drive over there and check that out.
Maybe we should do that next big snow.
Yeah, put some Pam on the bottom.
I mean, that could be its own YouTube series, like the sledding hills. Like, go find the most rockin' sledding hills.
You gotta come with us then. We're not doing this without you.
Yeah.
I mean, people do with roller coasters, so why not do that with sled hills too?
We should start taking our guests out to go sledding.
There you go.
And we'll get sponsored by Swiss Miss Hot Chocolate.
Yeah, Hot Wings is a thing. Like, let's just make sledding a thing. Interview people after they go down.
I see you got a bloody lip there.
It's a live interview while they're on.
Yeah. About to beep out half of it if they go to hit somebody. So junior high school. So how old would you say you were when you kind of got settled in to Sioux Falls?
Yeah, I would say like freshman in high school is when I really started to click in Sioux Falls. A freshman over at Washington High School. I had 2 years of Patrick Henry and sort of figuring life out in Sioux Falls and how it was different. And from 8th grade to my freshman year, I grew 8 inches.
Wow.
So I changed a lot and just sort of came into my own and started to figure some stuff out.
Sure.
Still definitely a troublemaker because then like Jackass was cool. Yeah. And so I got a bunch of friends where, like what could be better? A state where you can drive at 14 and you're into Jackass.
Now, I didn't grow up in South Dakota, so could you still drive Fast and Furious at the age of 14?
Well,
As long as you don't get caught.
I don't think you're supposed to, but you'd be amazed how fast a Chevy Celebrity could go.
Well, like when did the speed limit alter? It's always been 80 up here, has it?
No, it was 75 for
A long
like when
time.
I started driving.
But still 75.
Yeah,
I mean, where I
on the
grew up in
interstate,
Missouri, it's
yeah.
55.
Well, you always
Yeah.
at 10 minus 1.
Yeah.
Ed 10 minus 1. What are you, Canadian?
A?
So who were some of those, or what were some of those stories, lifelong lessons learned from teachers or parents or whoever that you're like, yeah, that's pretty wise advice. I might actually listen to that and take it into account rather than be a non-participative rebel.
Oh boy. Oh, it took me a while to sort it out. I don't know if I was necessarily ready to listen to anyone until I was about 22 years old.
Wow.
Like I had there was a rebel inside of me.
Is
for
it the red
whatever
hair?
reason.
Is that why?
Probably.
Yeah.
It doesn't help. But I was ornery, I think, and I don't know, just a generation of ornery. I liked punk rock music and ska music, and so I felt like I had to have a cause. I wasn't sure what it was, but
I needed one.
yeah, I needed one, and the system had to change.
Down with the man.
Yeah, I don't know why, but
So what do you think that now that you're older, where did that come from?
well, again, I go back to having older siblings. Like they got me into music and all sorts of stuff at a young age, and
So it's their fault.
I remember like the first big argument my sister Christine, my oldest sister, had with my parents was they were taking away a Guns N' Roses album from her.
Oh.
Just because it was too profane, and so like she's throwing this huge fit, and then I'm like sneaking into the other room and like listening to the album.
Making a copy.
Like what's the big deal here? Let me discover why my sister's in so much trouble. And yeah, so like they would bring
hilarious.
stuff home and I would just take it and absorb it. When we were in Iowa, we lived 6 miles out of town, pretty rural lifestyle, and so stuff was hard to come by. So anything that they brought into my life was like a huge deal.
Yeah. So you just cataloged it away.
Yeah.
I'm going to use this against the world.
Yeah,
in
I
the
got
future.
like the Green Day Dookie album in '94 from my sister. I totally just stole it from her. She brought it home, and she maybe got to listen to it once or twice, but then it was mine.
So you're our first guest to bring up ska music, which is like one of my favorite music types.
Yes.
So you third wave, fourth wave, like
Oh, I don't
saw
get
Les and
too,
Jake on here,
I
you know?
don't get too technical about it. Whatever wave is like, I don't know.
because
I
like,
like-
I'm a big Streetlight Manifesto fan.
yeah, Streetlight's awesome. I've seen them live a few times.
Because they were my first concert when I was growing up. They were at the Ramada, like in the mid 2000s.
Sure. Yeah, I went to that. I saw them before that. They came to town and they played in Renner. It was an amazing show at the Legion Hall in Renner.
So I can put Jeff on the back foot here because usually Jeff talks about musicians
was-
that I have no idea about.
I was just going to say, like,
Yeah, that was for me. That was a huge show for me, just because Streetlight is so incredible. Like I like to Catch 22 before Streetlight, and
So
however
Jeff,
that.
imagine like a punk rock band, but they also have trombones and trumpets, and it's just like half jazz, half punk rock.
well, I was just going to ask you, help me here.
You're either in it or you're not. Too. Like
Like I'd say, like 95% of the time, somebody's talking about a topic, and Vince is like, "Who's Lawrence Welk?" or whatever. And now I'm like, I know this thing ska, but I don't know what it is. So now I know how it feels.
Jazz punk.
Jazz punk.
Did you do the dance that went along with it too?
skanking.
Skanking,
Oh, yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Certainly.
There's a name called skanking?
Yeah, it's the dance you do when you listen to ska music.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't know how to describe it.
I
You
guess
can't really do it. You just kind of throw your hands out and
All right, I gotta look this up. Skanking.
Well, there's a band, Skanking Pickle.
Skanking pickle. Sure there is.
Yeah.
gosh. I feel
Sounds like
seen
the
right
last
now.
thing I would
I feel
eat.
seen right now.
I'm your guy. Yeah. So the Clash, I think, that's where it starts for me when I think about ska music is the Clash, and then building through there. Like Less Than Jake, I love that band. My friend Dustin got me into them in high school, and I was like, oh, this is my music. I like them. My sisters had brought home Real Big Fish.
Yeah, Real Big Fish.
And again, that's another album that I just stole and listened to on repeat. And
I'm so happy for you right now, Biz. You're reliving these memories that I've had to relive or got to relive on all these episodes, and now I feel kindred spirits here coming
Here we go.
together. That's the best part, though, when you talk about nostalgia.
Well, you put on here that one of your like favorite childhood memories is just like, was it a grocery store video rental and then just junk food binging for a whole weekend?
Oh yeah. So that's funny too.
That's like
being at the
90s.
holidays. This is perfect. So I've got a nephew who is 8 years old, and he just turned 9, and he loves Pokemon and video games, and he's getting into all these things. I'm like, we used to have to rent like a Nintendo from the grocery store, and you had one weekend to figure out the game.
Yeah.
And if you couldn't beat it in that weekend, you had to wait till the next month when maybe you would get. If you were good, you could rent hopefully that system is there and that game is there so you can pick up where you left off. But more than likely, you're getting a different game and going to be figuring that out. And
Otherwise,
so
you have to start all over again.
yeah, but that was the thing. Like we didn't, cell phones weren't a thing, and we didn't have cable TV. So like we would rent like a Sega or a Super Nintendo and like get Street Fighter and play that all weekend long.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
Yeah, or just like a rental store in general, going through and seeing the movies that you get to pick out.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's like big city there if you have an actual movie store. Like for us, it was in the grocery store. So you go to Hy-Vee and then they had a section that was video rentals.
Yeah.
With the little like laminated tags that you had to take up to the. It was good times.
That's the thing I wish that people could experience from now until the rest of time is going to a video rental store, whether it's a game or a movie, and going on the hunt, hoping and praying that nobody else has taken that movie that you want.
Sure.
And then inevitably they will. So now you've got to spend the next 3 hours trying to find the perfect movie because the one you wanted to go see wasn't
or
there.
there was a time when like, the clerks accidentally put the movies that were in the like rated differently into a different aisle. So the kids are like, oh, hey, look at that. And mom's like, no, you can't.
Yeah, we had a strategy. Like, each one of us got to pick out a movie. And, my sister, Christine, my oldest sister, is notorious for just picking like the worst god awful movie that only she would find like entertaining. And we would watch them and be like,
We need an example.
why? Oh, man. What's the, I don't even know the name of it, but it's like the dog show movie that some people think is just really, really funny.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
but
I can't think of the name of it, but like she's watching it and just like belly laughing the entire time. And my sister Becky and I are like, this is the dumbest movie we've ever seen, and we don't get it. Like
We wasted a rental opportunity.
yeah, you're at another level of finding humor in this, and
Yeah. I do miss
maybe
those
Best in
days.
Show, maybe is what it's called.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think
but
you're
like
right.
hunting out movies was always interesting because you'd have to watch what your siblings got. Like we would
Right.
each get to pick out a movie, and that was our entertainment. And so you never knew what you'd end up watching. And bless my sister's heart, they watched a lot of terrible like wrestling movies. Like I would pick out wrestling, like WrestleMania 3. Like we're gonna watch Hogan Andre again, and they'd be like, "Why
And they're
did
like,
you?
"No."
Why? Like we've rented this same movie like 12 times."
So when Greg gets out of college, you go to college?
A couple times, yeah.
All right.
That was really good.
Really,
He walked
really
on
good at it.
campus,
Yeah.
and then they told him to read.
So what'd you do after school?
Which time?
The last time.
So out of high school, I went to SDSU, South Dakota State University, studied health, physical education, recreation. I was there for a year and a half, and they said, you don't have to come back. And we mutually agreed that was probably appropriate.
He
but
didn't want to read in class.
Exactly. Yeah. I got a mixed bag of grades. I got them all. Successful. My dad says I studied carbonation, but long story short, I ended up at University of Sioux Falls, and I finished up with a management degree from USF. I was going to school at night. I was working full time for the YMCA, so I sort of got my act together. And was doing pretty well. But once I graduated, I was working at the Cookie Jar. My mom and dad own the Cookie Jar here in town.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so, I went to work for them full time, and was kindly told you need to get a place of your own, and you have to start to figure some of this stuff out. And so I did that, and a few bumps and bruises along the way, but sort of figured it out. And then eventually an opportunity came along to get into a running store, which was more my speed. Something that could be my own.
Yeah. Now you'd said in your some of the info you gave us, you had an interesting challenge in, I think it was 2011.
Sure.
The flood.
Yeah, at the camp.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, so the night of that storm, we had an overnight at Leif Erikson. So I was this is a good class in getting a job that you probably should not have gotten.
And so this is when you're with the Y.
Yeah,
YMCA.
working for the Sioux Falls Family YMCA. I was the director of camping services at the time. And so we had an overnight. I had 8 and 9-year-olds sleeping over at the camp, and then 10, 11-year-olds were off-site at a different camp, Inspiration Hills.
Okay. Sounds like a makeout spot.
It's guaranteed to happen. But that night of that storm, it started raining. We had been in contact with the National Weather Service and through semantics, they don't think flash flooding is a warning type deal, and so sort of had some miscommunication. And I put a stick in the ground, and the water's coming up. And so, long story short, we have to evacuate 300 kids at 2 in the morning, which had been done before. It wasn't it wasn't totally crazy. Like we've evacuated the camp, we've gone down to the Y, we've spent a night at the Y when storms roll in. That was pretty normal. But the next day, waking up in the sewage plant on the south end there, had malfunctioned, and so there was like raw sewage all over the camp.
Ooh.
That was something that was unprecedented. And, being 23 years old and trying to think, okay, we have 2 more sessions of camp. Session for camp is 2 weeks long. Yeah. So we have 4 weeks where we can't use any of the facilities that we've been using for, I don't know, 60 years.
Sure.
Because it's all covered in raw sewage. So we've got a major cleanup. We've got a major catastrophe on our hands here with the camp, and now we have to figure out what we're going to do. We have to figure out programming. So it was a pretty pivotal moment in my career, understanding how communication works, and what happens when communication breaks down, and just a wild night for sure. And then the fallout of that was pretty crazy. But
wow, I don't know why I'm picturing that album you talked about earlier, Green Day Dookie.
Yeah.
Well, it's Duty. It was Duty in Caddyshack. Remember when there was a candy bar floating around? Duty, and Bill Murray walks over and sniffs it and eats it, and some guy passes out.
Yeah, good movie.
So there's Dookie and Duty all over the place. Did you go from there and then into to 605 running?
No, I had, I still work for the cookie jar for my parents, but I had been sort of doing dual roles with the YMCA and continuing. My parents bought the cookie jar when I was a sophomore in high school, which was pretty transformative in my life. Most of your friends' parents are saving up money for college, maybe, and that was not the case. You're on your own. You're stubborn, so we're not going to be helping you out. We're going to pursue a dream of our own.
Sure.
Mom, Dad, I love you, and they definitely helped me out a lot, in particular with a job, a consistent job all the time. And they've hired almost all of my friends too. But
sweet.
So got into the cookie jar. I had left the Y in 2012, and was working full time for my folks, and sort of looking at that is this a succession plan? Will I be taking over this business? And a little on the wayward side still, just sort of sorting things out. I really enjoyed my time at the Y. There were a lot of things that I liked about being outdoors every day, having lots of different activities.
Sure.
Physical health and wellness has always been a part of my life, and so the Y touched a lot of that. I got to do a lot of cool things in basketball with the YMCA, and as I mentioned, I love sports, but it was a time to sort of sort things out and start a career and an established business that could potentially be just given to you, but not given to you, because nothing's ever given to you. Seemed like an all right thing, but it was definitely not my passion. I am my family's cook, and I can bake, but I don't necessarily want to do that for a living, because I've seen the toll that it takes on my parents, and it's a hard industry. It's a really hard industry, but I learned some great things in that. I was newly married, and the running store was a option that came along, and it was a pretty cool option for me. It's been a life-changing option. So
had you, when you went into that, had you been big into running?
No.
Whoa.
No, if anything, I had done a half marathon and a 5K.
Yeah.
When I was at USF, I did a 5K because I was chasing around a girl and she was going to do the homecoming 5K, so I wanted to do that too. And that was like
So
my
you were
first.
literally chasing her in the race.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, she was a
literally
soccer
running after
player. It was not happening for a lot of reasons. It was not happening, but. I got into running. I started running around campus. Like I'd run around campus a couple times. I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad. And from there, I did the Sioux Falls half marathon with my oldest sister, Christine, and that was like my running knowledge. So I got punished with running a lot. If you can believe it, like when I played football, I had to run suicides. When I played basketball, I had to run ladders. When I played baseball, I had to run, foul pole to foul pole because I had a mouth and I got in trouble a lot. So, so me and running that didn't necessarily like jive a ton, but I had gotten into it and I've always been very competitive. And when I couldn't play competitive sports anymore, I needed something. And the running store is cool because shoes are cool. Everyone loves shoes. Like,
The smell.
Definitely the smell.
The new ones, anyway.
Yeah.
Not the old ones. There's still a smell there too.
But like sporting goods, athletic apparel is fun to work with. Shoes are fun to work with, and so it was a cool place to land. And I'm really competitive, and I got into running and realized I'm terrible at running, and so I can be competitive with myself and not hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah, there's
which
a support
is
group for that.
Yeah, which is
Probably is. Probably is.
But that's what I needed. I needed outlets. So I got into golf and running after college. And both of them I'm just not good at, but I can compete with myself and really not hurt anybody's feelings because I was viciously competitive in any kind of game. And so I needed to figure that out. And so I've been able to do that with running and with golf.
So what's a myth as an owner of a shoe store? What's a myth that you want to dispel once and for all about running?
I would say running is not scary.
Not scary. Okay,
Yeah.
Keep going with that.
So coming into a running store can be really intimidating because the perception is that everyone working at that running store is like an Olympian.
Oh, that's a good point.
That's
true.
And we're normal people. We like ska music and we grew up here.
But
And,
apparently Donatello's an Olympian now.
yeah. Well, I mean, he is the smart one. He would figure it out. But and I think that's my biggest thing is we take the scary out of running. Running is a really intimidating thing. People, they had to run the mile in school and they hated that, or they had to do, the dash with the erasers, whatever that was, or the pacer run with the recorded video. No one liked that.
Sure.
But running is pretty special.
Yeah.
Especially the community surrounding running. And I would say running is not scary. That's the biggest myth is people are, the common thing is, well, I could never do that. It's like, actually, you probably could, and you might surprise yourself.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like, even though I'm going to run a marathon, I'm not probably going to run the whole time.
Right.
I'm probably going to walk a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like, walking is cool too.
Sure. Now that's a good point. I think that's probably true for a gym too. A lot of people are afraid to go to the gym because Bo Beefy Neck is going to be there grunting away.
Yeah.
And
or an influencer is going to be filming.
Then you got
what he
that's
caught
true
on film.
too.
Or,
Yeah.
So then you got people like my trainer, or when I ask him, "Hey, do we do cardio?" and he says, he's like, look at these legs. He's like, what do you use these legs for? I'm like, running. He's like, no, what I use these legs for are either hopping fences or running from the cops. I don't do cardio. And I'm like, okay.
Well, there are a lot of people that are kind of anti-running for whatever reason.
Sure.
And
a lot of doctors.
it's
Fascinatingly.
we don't want you to get better because if you do, you're not going to come back and see us.
It's funny. No, there are circles of like, what's the doctor I need to see that will understand running? 'Cause
Oh yeah.
No, that's a good.
a lot of myths there.
That is a good myth. So the runner's high.
Sure.
That's something that's talked about a lot. I know I've experienced it. Is that something that you think other people should get to experience also?
I think
Legally.
Thank you for clarifying.
I think the runner's high it's a real thing. I think it's been maybe overblown, overhyped. It's just anytime you increase endorphins and are happy in wellness, you're going to experience some sort of euphoria. So whether that's running, obviously that's one of my preferred ways, but I also love to get out and kayak. I like to play golf. I like to hike and do a lot of other things. And I think all of those things are going to create the runner's high.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily just have to run. Now, there is something special about being able to do something that only like 1% of the population is going to take on, you know, and that's like marathoning. It puts you in a pretty exclusive company, and literally most anybody can go out and do it. And I'm certain that we could coach you up and get you to a place where you could finish a marathon. And I say that because I've seen it happen. You know, we have an incredibly diverse and unique audience that is part of our running community and shops at our store. And that's one of the most exciting things about it, is just to hear the stories of, you know, like guys like Tim, who's 81 years old and has done marathons on all 7 continents, or, you know, so like we see stuff like that all the time, and we truly believe running can be for anybody.
We'll be right back.
What about this myth that in order to be a good runner, you have to have really expensive shoes?
It's totally true.
Totally true.
Right, speaking of shoes, like, has there, like, in your experience, like, have there been some misses when it comes to like the shoe? Like, I remember for a while, like, there was that whole bit about minimal footwear. Then there was the finger shoes, and there was the.
Hey, be careful with that. No,
I mean, just is there something that you like in your? I mean, it doesn't have to be like a fact or not, but just from your opinion, like what's been some of the misses? What's been some of the wins?
all right. Well,
I think the thing.
Allow me to answer this question here.
I think the thing that is most important in footwear, especially in running shoes, but anytime you're going to be active, is making sure that you get a proper fit and that you feel good in the shoes you're wearing. And I think research will support this as well. So we can get into the weeds with technology and what goes into building a certain type of shoe. But I think the important thing and what we do really well is we fit you for shoes. So we're actually going to measure your feet. And there's some myths and misconceptions about what your shoe size should be and how a shoe should fit. But I think if you feel good about the fit and feel of your shoes, so you actually have to try them on. You can't just read something online and then say, well, that's the shoe for me, and buy it and expect to have a great experience in that shoe. Sharing with others the experience of running and learning from what other runners have done is key. And that's where we offer a service that's pretty valuable in terms of the fit process and taking the time to do it right and do it well and get footwear that you feel great in.
Yeah.
Like, I'll vouch for you guys. I was 30 years old when I walked in your store and realized and found out that I've been buying shoes the wrong size my whole life as far as running shoes go. And I was like, oh, they're not the same size as my regular shoes?
Yep.
Nope.
Well, I would bet too, at least this is what I saw when I was in the running space, is you see something on TV or in a magazine, you're like, oh, I want this shoe. And then you come to find out it's just not for you. Like, I have a very narrow foot, and I found out Nikes typically run kind of narrow, but I might want this shoe or that shoe, and come to find out, nope, that's really not the best running shoe for you. And you got to put down the ego a little bit and go, all right, well, I guess it can't be seen with the cool kids, but at least I can run better.
Yeah. One thing that the running industry and like the Olympics, the major marathons, what they do well is marketing, right? So when really you see all of the elites line up in bright pink shoes from one brand, it's like, that must be the best shoe in the whole wide world. I've got to have it. And you think about the type of athletes that are wearing them. First of all, they're a third my size. Second of all, they run like over 150 miles a week, which I might do in a month, depending on the month, right? Like they're training at a totally different level. They're using the shoes in a completely different way than what I'm going to do. And I run a lot by normal standards. But I'm not touching what an elite athlete is going to be doing. Even our sub-elites around town are not doing what Olympians are doing. And so understanding like who the footwear is designed for and what it actually is going to do for you. The reality of it is your cadence, your pace is not gonna actually get a 4% effect out of a shoe, whatever that might be.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You'll feel good in it, maybe. You also could feel miserable in it because you're physically not built to be in that shoe. Like both things could happen.
What are some trends in the and I don't trends that's like a negative, but like I mean in a positive way. What are the directions or the I'll just go back to trends of running shoes or apparel that people should pay attention to?
Sure. I think the last 4 or 5 years in running shoes have been some of the most innovative years ever.
Yeah.
In terms of product design, technology going into shoes. The running shoes that we're selling today are just absolutely light years ahead of what we were selling when we first opened up. It's not even comparable. So much of what we were first selling was very much like a rinse and repeat. Like, here's the new model. It's exactly like the old model. But no, like the process of getting feedback, learning from things, and putting in innovative things it's pretty unmatched right now. It's unparalleled in the industry, and it's hard to find a time, unless you go way back to when like we introduced like the waffle pattern on a shoe or things like that we've had so much innovation and so much amazing stuff put into footwear.
It's really cool.
And it's across all brands too. Every brand is doing really amazing things. They're trying to keep up with one another. It's sort of follow the leaders kind of deal, but they've stepped up their game, and the product that's coming out is great. Now, as an industry, there's been issues with delivering product. There's been issues with any industry that you could get into the weeds in, but in terms of innovation, it's been unbelievable.
Now, you guys coach also, right?
We do. Yeah.
Because I think that's, and it sounds so stupid. I would say most people are like, it's not a bad idea to get a coach to share their run. Like, oh, I know how to run. But the amount of stress and extra effort people put into running, they could have a so much more enjoyable experience if they had a coach or someone to say, let me give you a couple of tips. You don't have to do this.
Sure.
While you're running. I just see, or this is probably my favorite. You see every little kid when they first learn to run, they're just working against their body. There's just little things like that I've picked up on, and I look back and go, God, did I really look like that? And it sounds bad. I don't mean to say it like that, but I do think that somebody could benefit from having a little bit of a running coach.
Yeah, so form definitely plays into it, but then understanding load management and with coaching, it's pretty easy to go online and rip a training plan off the internet and say, all right, I'm just going to follow this plan and everything's going to be honky dory.
Right.
But what happens when it rains outside, or when your kid gets sick, or life happens? Sure. Now what do you do? Well, I'll double up tomorrow, or I'll do this, or I can't skip this day, so I'm going to do this even though I've got like a fever of 103. I'll just go out and get this run in, and it's fine. It's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
The specialization that comes with coaching and understanding how the body works, and being in a relationship and building that relationship with a running coach is critical. So there's so many things that go into it, and being able to adapt and specialize in a training plan is really important.
Yeah, I agree.
So before we got on the air, you guys were swapping some running stories. So how about real quick around the table we share, some cautionary, like a cautionary tale from a story that each of us has experienced in regards to running or whatever it is. I mean,
cautionary.
Like we talked about like trendy and wearing shoes that didn't work for you. I remember I signed up for the Chicago Half Marathon, and I bought a new pair of minimal zero drop shoes. By mile 13, like I was like bleeding, and they were like trying to pull me off, and I was like, how much longer?
But
You're almost there.
So did they teach how to run in those shoes?
No, I just I tried to YouTube it.
So I know enough to be dangerous.
So like my pain point, what I learned was like for 2 weeks afterwards, I could hardly walk, and I was like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, and that's where so when you mentioned that earlier, I ran in minimal shoes for a bit, but I knew that those aren't for me anyways. It's not. I can't run long distance in a minimal shoe like a Vibram 5-finger. Loved it. And they're really fun on trails and stuff like that. But if you go heel to toe in a minimal shoe, that's a recipe for disaster.
That's what I did.
You got to learn to run the chi method or the pose method where it's more on the forefoot.
I was a reckless 22-year-old.
Yeah. And that's where, like for me as an overpronator, that means I've got very flat feet. You can't go heel to toe. You've got to go somewhere in that midfoot or forefoot. And that was a game changer for me, not only in how much I really enjoyed running, but didn't hurt the knees and the hips as much.
Sure. I think the best advice or things that I've learned is that your running shoes are not prescriptions. And so you can't get into any kind of footwear expecting it to correct your body. A lot of times what you need is like a physical therapist or a doctor. So when we have people come in and they're like, oh, I have shin splints, or oh, I've got runner's knee, or I've got IT band syndrome, all of these issues, that's going to be form related. That's going to be muscle related. Your running shoes, it does not matter. And I think research will back that up quite a bit as well. What running shoes do is they protect your feet and they help you recover faster and they make you feel good. And so fit and feel is really, really important. Now there's some functionality within each type of shoe. I'm not going to argue that. Part of our fit process is going to be able to get you the best fit specifically for your foot type, but they're not prescriptions. They don't fix injuries, and that's one of the most common things we see is someone will come in and, well, I've got horrible knee pain. I need you to fix it. And it's like, listen, all right, I studied carbonation at SVSU. Am I the one you want fixing your knee problem?
I'm going to reuse that one.
So,
no, I went through, when I first started running, I went through, not even joking, I went through $500, which now again, that means at least five, because shoes back then were like between like $80 and $100, I think.
sure.
But I ran in a Reebok. It had a bladder, like an air bladder inside of the shoe, and it was especially on the heel. And I went through that shoe in no time, and I'm like, something's not right. And so someone's like, oh yeah, you should probably go talk to a podiatrist. So I go in there, and he had me take off my shoes and socks, and he looked at my foot for a long time, and he goes, wow, this is a true story, by the way. He goes, can you, are you comfortable with med students being with me here? And I'm
Always
like,
what you want to hear. Right?
yeah.
Like,
And I'm like, yeah, I think so. And he goes, okay. He goes, I'll be right back. So he's going for a little bit.
bring them all in.
Yeah. So he shut
It's a gallery.
This is a teachable moment.
Yeah, it was. So he shut the curtain like that. So then I hear him, and he opens the curtain, and I see three things. I see he's got a pan of water, he's got a white or like some kind of a fabric, and then there's literally 25 med students behind him. And I'm like, did I win a prize? What's the deal?
Class.
And he goes, I said, I thought you said med student. And he goes, oh no, med students. And he goes, you're a very unique case. He goes, so he goes, I'm going to have you just dip your right foot into the water, and then I want you to step on this pad for me. And so I did. And he said, now I need you to, jump off and get back on the bed or whatever that was. So when I lifted up, the whole class was like, ooh. And then I look at them, I start laughing. I said, you guys sound like Wheel of Fortune. And they all laughed. And I said, okay, so what prize do I get? And he goes, you have literally the flattest feet I've ever seen, and probably the flattest that these guys will ever see. And they're like, so I was like, all right, well, how are you going to fix me here? Orthotics, or what's the deal? But that's one thing that I think I would tell almost anybody, like you say, is the shoe's not going to fix that. You need to talk to different people, get some opinions, whether it goes to the doctor or orthotics or whatever like that. But yeah, the shoe's not always going to fix your
My
issues.
mind as well.
Yeah.
Like there's probably, so in that podiatrist's office, there's a framed print of Jeff's foot, the perfect flat foot.
well, the thing is, I guarantee you, he still sent you a bill.
Yeah,
Right? Like,
Yeah, he probably did.
Got away with that. Yeah.
I
Thanks for
save
the
money
pan of
on
water.
shoes, though.
Thanks for the pan of water in the front.
Man. Yeah, going through those shoes that quickly, I'm like, something's not right here. Jeez Louise. Well, we are almost to that end, unfortunately.
Sure.
We could probably yak about this
Yeah.
fun stuff forever.
So we always try to close the show, because the show is about, piecing that thread from your past nostalgic memories to your success right now in the present and future. So is there a particular moment, a particular phrase or quote or something from your developmental years, your childhood, that you still kind of carry with you as you look forward to today in the present?
I think John Wooden said this, but courage is contagious. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that. But that's something that has always stood out in me. I think that's a quote from John Wooden. But courage is contagious has always been something that I've sort of lived by. Having the courage to buy into a small business, be in small business. And then the fabric for me from childhood on has been family. I've been really blessed to have two incredible parents that have really been a guiding light in so many different things, both in my family life, but also in business. To see, for me, I believe that the American dream lies within an entrepreneur. And so being able to sort of create your own path and pursue that with the tenacity of finding community, finding passion is pretty special. So I think those would be the things that I go by.
Yeah, I love that. So if you need some shoes here in Sioux Falls,
Come see me.
go see the man. I like it.
And we'll leave Greg's contact information and 605 Running Co. All the stuff will be found in the show notes and will be found below. Otherwise, friends, thank you for another episode of Nostalgia Street, and we'll see you around next time. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If you're on iTunes, please take a moment and leave us a rating and review.
Head on over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. You'll get access to engaging visuals that complement our podcast content.
Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to having you with us on our next episode. So until next time, listeners, stay curious, stay engaged,
Never stop walking down Nostalgia Street.